Welcome to Equal Time. You're looking at a video from a journalist in the country of Georgia. Georgie Murvandidze and 19 other Georgian journalists toured Google, Facebook, and many Bay Area media outlets this January. It's part of a training program offered by the San Jose State University School of Journalism and Mass Communications through the U.S. Embassy to Tbilisi, Georgia.
Welcome to a special edition of Equal Time. I'm Bob Rucker from San Jose State University. Today we have a special group of guests from the nation of Georgia, where we're going to talk about issues in the media, both journalism and public relations. Let's meet our guests.
My name is Elena Guangelashvili. I represent Business Media Georgia. This is an umbrella organization. I'm executive editor for Forbes Georgia, and I also host my own program, Analytics with Elena Guangelashvili.
Hi, I'm Anna Turava. I work at Forset, a communications organization, and we do a lot of things with data and data visualization, but I also have background in TV and radio journalism.
Hi, I'm Agakes Kharublidze. I work as a video editor and web administrator in a cross-platform media organization, Guliar News.
Hello, my name is Teana Bagdawadze. I'm a co-founder and editor-in-chief of TrendG, which is a multimedia platform dedicated to women and their needs.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here at San Jose State in the School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Great opportunity to find out what else is happening in the world. But we know in all forms of media, advertising, public relations, journalism, critical thinking is the key to success in our professions here. Is that the same for you in Georgia? What are you up against, Tiana?
Well, I would say that critical things is a basic thing for everything to be successful in your life, especially right now when we live in the era of asking a lot of questions and asking questions even in some places which we used to believe. So now people are challenged to know the source of information and how we proceed this information. So media has a big challenge on them to not only to be the channel of communication, but to set some kind of tone and voice and to make sure that the information they deliver to their audience is true and the information has nothing to do with manipulation and propaganda.
Now see, mostly everything you said sounds familiar to an American audience which believes truth-telling is important,
yes,
and making sure they tell the truth is very important in journalism. But what would I say to someone who would ask, in Georgia, are there issues of fake news where you have leaders and politicians accusing you of that?
Yeah, of course we have this issue with fake news, and especially with social medias, it's hard to tell what is fake, what is real, and that's why the direction of fact-checking is getting more and more popular, and yes, so we as journalists try to always so not to believe everything we see on the surface and dig deeper and find the reality.
Yeah, and also when we are talking about the truth, you know, I mean, is it truth or is it just being fact-based and just being fair? And that's already truth, because you can see you can see that you are doing real good journalism there, and all the standards are in place. And without that genuine curiosity that a person must have to become a good journalist, I mean, you should have passion for things. You should be interested in things. You should want to ask questions, and you want to get the answers right, not just any answers that you might be hearing, but also what you're analyzing. And sometimes we used to say that when you're listening to politicians or to businessmen, it's not only what they say, but what they are not saying.
Exactly.
And that's really important.
Rings true here, it rings true everywhere in the world. I'm curious to know, though, you are a nation that once belonged to the Soviet Union.
Yes.
Now you're independent, you have a democracy. But Aka went, in the United States, even in a democracy like ours, access to things to get pictures and sounds so that you can do the editing you like to do can sometimes be challenging.
Yeah,
Do you run up against that problem as an editor there?
Not pretty much, because I always get the videos and stuff I get, so I don't usually go to the database to take it, like I get delivered. So I don't usually run into problems like that. Journalists, on the other hand, they do have a problem with accessing information. They get usually blocked or delayed, and it's pretty much everybody. It's the same.
Don't journalists have to be registered in your country?
No, it's not registered profession, especially right now. Like we know that social media has become part of journalism, and journalism has become part of social media. So it's like everybody can be a journalist with owning their own voice and their camera. So it's not a registered profession.
Yeah, if I run into an accident or something and take a picture or video with my smartphone and upload it to Facebook, I'm already a journalist. I'm telling the story. So it's...
But the thing is that when we say, you mentioned that truth-telling and storytelling, on one hand, yes, we get a lot of streams of communication, but you have to know whom to trust. Now the issue is not the access to information, but giving in the right filter from the people that you trust and working on your reputation, which is the biggest challenge for media right now, not to be manipulated and not to be manipulative. These are two things that media is challenging everywhere, because on one hand they have their opinion.
Yeah, and also probably to think, when you are thinking of sources, you should not think of like only people who you can talk to, even if they are really experts and really wise people. I mean, you should look up things yourselves, because in the field that I am in, business and economics, you always have to have your hands on those data, analyzing yourself those data and seeing the trends that you are seeing in there. So all these international reports and stuff, and this fact-checking skills that you have to develop very sharply in 21st century, because you get so much information that you need just to filter in.
You all would make great guest lecturers in our journalism classes, because you talk about passion, you talk about fact-checking and truth-telling being very important. Let's talk about a pragmatic reality. When you look at the United States today and all of the news coverage coming from America about the Trump administration and what's happening in the world, how is the world reacting? How is your nation reacting to this?
It's a controversial issue, because we cannot say that everybody reacted in the same manner. We are very interested in foreign relations, and especially in things that are happening in the US. It's part of our reality. A lot of good things are happening with the support of American nation and with support of embassy and different projects. So it was something that we didn't see as something happening over the ocean, but something that could influence Georgia. There were some bad trends, but there were also some good trends. For me, for example, settling the things about Russian and Georgian relations. I don't know, maybe you know that 20% of our territory is occupied by the Russian government. So in some cases, what we want to see from our side is this knowledge and this approach and attitude from the current administration that can be helpful for us.
Yeah, definitely the line that we will be taking while focusing on the things that are going on currently in U.S. politics is what impact it will have on Georgia and on U.S.-Georgia relations. But apart from that, I mean, it's part of democracy. I mean, sometimes people can rule a good way, sometimes, but that's your choice. Yeah, that's your choice that the U.S. did at this point.
And you've had obviously a much closer relationship with Russia. You're certainly familiar with Vladimir Putin and all of the concerns that Americans have. But in the media, journalists here are still trying to figure out, is it a good idea for the two countries' leaders to be that close? In fact, some question whether they should be close. Do they question that in your country?
Yeah, they questioned a lot probably the reset policy that you had, which probably didn't work because we see a lot of articles we're reading and a lot of news coverage that we see about, you know, hacking the U.S. elections and stuff like that. So, so yes, Russia is a difficult country to deal with. believe me, we know that because 20% of our country is occupied, and when you go out of Tbilisi in 24 kilometers, you see Russian troops, which is not easy to deal with. On the other hand, Russia is the biggest market, a neighboring market that you will have, which you need for the economic purposes. But when you get dependent on that market, it gets really tough, because in 2006, suddenly Russia decided to embargo all the wine that was and everything that was exported to from Georgia to Russia, and of course it was a big collapse and very difficult for Georgia to deal with, because all the exports were just in air. And that's when we started to diversify, and probably you might find some Georgian
Good
wine
wine
on
here.
on US markets as well. And we were just talking that, you know, in Washington, in some other places, you're already getting this taste of Georgian food, and some Georgian restaurants and stuff
And
like that.
there is also a good story about San Francisco winery-based Georgian winery, which is based here. So
isn't it?
yeah, so it's something. What we try to do is the things like this to impact, to make people understand. To be honest, the first thing that we really don't like when we say, "Oh, we are from Georgia." Yes, when they say they don't understand that it's a state, it's not state, it's country. It's okay. But when they start talking to you in Russian, it's something that is not very common for us, because we know that the development of the country should not go in that direction.
Sure.
And especially in US, where you have felt a lot of Russian impact, even here, because it's been talked that Russian had a big influence over your elections, and they're still like have some kind of like close relations. You have to have understanding that it's a big issue. That's why it was like our impact in terms of media on the international level. We try to promote ourselves as an independent country, which is occupied, as Elena said, 20% of the country is occupied by.
Well, and I think that's what fascinates a lot of our viewers, and I'll ask you both to join in as well. When you have that type of presence, a military presence from another nation occupying your country, I can see where that raises the level of stress, but how does it affect your ability to do honest, truthful journalism? Do you feel pressure to make your edits a little bit more favorable to the government of Russia or other countries, or
no,
no?
we don't get pressured to.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We don't get pressure to make pro-Russian videos. No, it's not a problem. But we wouldn't make it anyway if they pressured us. So.
Actually, it's the quite opposite. Like the media is against this Russian propaganda, and the people are also involved in it. And it's a common sense that Russia is not a good friend of Georgia, so people are engaged in this anti-Russian propaganda.
Yeah, but let me just jump in. Tiona and I were talking like 2 days ago or so when we were questioning. There's this thing of balance and how you're using this balance, and sometimes we get into things when journalists are told that, you know, you have to portray both sides, and you have to restrain yourself from calling them occupants or saying that the country is occupied, because these are the sharp words. But we have just one answer, that, you know, at this point the country is occupied, and this is what EU says, this is what US says, this is what the world has said, that Georgia's territories are occupied by Russians. So this is not whether
opinion,
we have balance or
it's
not.
Not
This is not an opinion. This is not an assessment. This is a fact.
This is a fact.
So that helps us in our report.
So, see, America doesn't know very much about the nation of Georgia.
We have a lot of to say.
Indeed. In the very short time remaining, I know about the architecture. You're noted for great architecture. What else? Very quickly, is Georgia
Wine.
noted for?
Great wine.
Wine, food,
Great wine.
Yeah.
nature.
I like the way you keep getting back to food. That's good.
Nature,
Of course.
maybe.
Nature,
Nature,
Yeah.
yeah.
beautiful
say.
scenery.
Yeah, we have
Absolutely.
mountains and we have sea and we have everything. So
Yeah, and
it's,
because it is a small country, it's easy to get to one point from another.
Yeah, you
So
get to
if
skiing
you
one
come
minute,
to Georgia, you will have a really
Then
good
in
time
the sea,
there.
so
Oh, very good. And very welcoming. Right before we
Yes.
started taping, you all invited me to come
Absolutely.
visit Georgia. Can I
Even
bring a
on
few
tape.
thousand friends with me?
Yeah, no problem.
Very good.
No
We
problem.
love guests. This is our how to say,
Biggest
mark.
tradition,
Yes.
yeah.
we
Yeah, I read
love
somewhere you
landmark.
think of guests as a gift from God.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's a
that's
phrase.
that's a very nice thing to think. Listen, thank you. I've enjoyed. I've learned a lot about your country.
Thank you
And,
very
Thank
much.
you for
Thank you
having
for
us.
hosting us.
and one of the learning experiences for the School of Journalism and Mass Communications is that we look at how other cultures are dealing with other aspects of the media. For example, in public relations. Right now, I want to go to my colleague, Dr. Matt Cabot, who has a group of guests who will continue this conversation about Georgia.
Thanks, Bob. I'm Matt Cabot, and joining me today is another group of journalists from Georgia. Let's meet them now.
Hello, I'm Maya Shamanauri. I'm working for Imedi News G. It's an online media platform.
Hello, I'm Anna Ortangadze. I work for online media platform OnG.
Hello, I'm Bastim Galoblishvili, working for Liberology, which is print and online publication.
I'm Irma Kurtanidze. I'm working in Georgia for online news media organization Info Rustavi.
Great, welcome to all of you. So today we're talking about public relations, so I thought we'd start with a definition so we know what we're discussing. So a classic definition of public relations is that it's a management function that identifies, establishes, and maintains mutually beneficial relationships between an organization and its publics on whom its success or failure depends. Now, in the United States, almost every organization has a PR person to help proactively manage those relationships. So tell me, in Georgia, does that function or profession exist? And if so, to what extent?
We have peer managers in a governmental and in a private sector. But Georgia is just 25 years old as an independent country. That's why we are still studying how to work in a peer, in a management, and what are their jobs. They are still studying.
And it's difficult to work with them because they don't know how to work with journalists. And they think that if they tell us that I will call you in an hour, it's enough for us. And they think that we don't lose our time and so on. So it's hard for us to.
And you work with
Yeah,
PR people too then?
It's still developing. And it depends on institution. Some ministries have peer which are really productive with working with journalists, but some of them are trying to steal our time because of the interests of, for example, for a ministry or for an institution. And yeah, it depends on institution, on context and time. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with him. It depends. We have good peer managers and we have, I mean, not bad, but they can be better.
So what characterizes a good PR professional that you've worked for before? Because in the United States, that relationship sometimes has been strained, and sometimes we call them friendly adversaries. But we know that PR people need the media to help promote news about their organizations, and journalists need PR people to help fill that news hole. So what are the characteristics of a good PR person that you've worked with in the past?
First of all, I think that they must not lie to us, but sometimes they do, and we
Maybe they a good example would be to not lie. Yeah, I agree, and not steal time. Like when you have an information and you're just hiding it, to like make the process longer and make journalists wait so long, and it's so makes our job harder and difficult to write and publish things.
Sometimes
And
they
there
try.
is there is also big public interest, but they don't care about it sometimes. When really important thing happens, they have to publish as more information as they can. Yeah. They don't often do this.
They don't know what information they must give us. It's a very big problem.
they try to hide information. And when you call about some issue, they do not know what to do, what to answer, and then they say, call me about an hour later. Maybe you then call and they do not answer your calls. I think that they do not know how to solve the problems. Because we know there is a crisis PR, right? Because they do not know what to do in a situation, such a situation.
I would say they should be open with media persons, and they should be in touch with us when we need them, and sometimes they need us too. So they should have good connection with media.
So one of the distinguishing factors between a PR professional and what we call a PR flack or a hack, I'm not sure if you use those terms, or spin doctor, is an abiding sense of ethics. So for example, it's not our job in PR to put a clean shirt on a dirty body. Does that term make sense?
Yeah.
It's not our job in PR to make something look better than it actually is.
Yeah.
So our job is to help organizations behave in such a way that it will build trust between the organization and its publics. And the best way to do that is through open, honest, transparent communication, and also helping organizations to prove what they say through action. So in your interactions with public relations people, do you get the sense that the PR professionals in your country have that sense of ethics, like they're ethical advocates for the companies that they represent, always having the public's best interest in mind?
It also depends, I would say, because it depends. Sometimes they work really good, and you see the results of their work. But sometimes there is not that transparency, and they sometimes don't think too much about public interests. They try to appear and make themselves popular and show only positive things, but I would say it depends on certain organization. Yeah,
it depends, I agree, and there is maybe what you said, if that not happens, that means there is misunderstanding with what PR is, and maybe there is also lack of education of about this profession. Sometimes you can see as PR manager people who are not educated as PR managers. So maybe that's the reason, and it depends. Sometimes they are really good at their job and profession, but sometimes they're not.
And sometimes they don't know what people really want, and it's a very big problem too.
Sometimes PR managers are just former journalists, and they have a good contacts, and that's why this company or some minister has decided to hire her or him.
Right. So you know, public relations as a profession developed in the United States in the early 1900s. And it happened when consumers began to have more power, that what they said mattered. So companies could no longer ignore public opinion. So as people had a voice that what they said mattered, and a choice that they could say, I'm not going to use this product or this service, I'm not going to vote for this candidate, then all of a sudden public relations was born. In Georgia, do you think people in general feel like they have a voice and a choice? And is there a difference between the younger and older generations, pre-Soviet, post-Soviet?
Yes, there is, of course they have a choice, and but it depends from what kind of angle you look at it. For example, if there are really bad conditions like labor law and bad conditions for laborers, for example, and some people say that if they are working in bad conditions, this is their choice. They can work there, and if he doesn't want to work in bad conditions, he can go away. I think it's not a choice. This is the only chance to get paid and to feed your family, to pay bills, and etc. And this is sometimes they don't have a choice. I would say so. And what about another issue was choice
And voice. What they
voice,
say
yeah.
matters.
Yeah, they are related, right? Some people's voice are still not so loud, even in media, and this is our problem in Georgia, because there are some communities which are still invisible, and their voice need to be heard by government, by society, and etc. Yeah.
So one of the most important ethical values in public relations is the free flow of information. In other words, the public relations professional should never intentionally clutter the channel of communication to make it difficult for publics to make an informed decision about a product, a service, or an idea. How would you characterize the flow of information in your society? Do companies generally provide accurate and truthful information about their products and services? Or do they tend to exaggerate their product claims or do spin to make things look better than they actually are?
I think they try to show better than it is, truly. They always try to do it because they think that their job is to do it.
Yeah, they talk about pros and sometimes not cons, I would say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do,
Yeah.
I do, yes.
They hide the best side, but
Right.
they say what is the good in this product.
So in public relations today, in our society, transparency has become really important. The publics want to know the good and the bad. Is that sense of transparency important? Will it affect the company if they're not transparent with their publics?
Transparency, of course, is really important.
Right.
There is a huge trust issue that then people can make choices, that they are realized choices. They have truth, they have information, and then they can right choice, and they can be sure that they made right decisions. So this is really important.
Yeah, transparency gives the people a choice, right? When you have information, you can think about it, you can discuss, and then decide what you want. That's why transparency is the most important thing.
But sometimes we don't have it, and so people don't trust them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
So-
can I say?
Sure.
But when it comes to social media, in social media, everything you can get any information, and when peer people try to say only good things about product, there are always people who feedback,
Right.
and you can just go and see, and they always say some kind of truth. So they can't hide everything, and they can hide bad things because nowadays social media works really good.
Yeah, so social
Yeah.
media is the biggest thing that's happened in
Yeah.
public relations the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Every single organization needs to have some presence, Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
Reddit, whatever. Is it as pervasive in Georgia too?
Yeah, they use it. Yeah, Facebook is more popular in Georgia because population is using Facebook. Twitter is not so popular as in United States. That's why the companies and the government do not use Twitter.
Yeah. Also
More-
interesting is that in Georgia only 50% uses internet. Penetration is 50% in the country. So, but yeah, in this 50%, Facebook is the most popular, and all the organizations are developing their pages, profiles on Facebook, and Twitter is less popular, or any other social media. Yeah.
So governments also use PR professionals. And I want to ask you, if you were to be called upon by the Georgian government to be a PR person for the government, what one thing would you tell the world about your country?
Basti would better about this.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. If you were the public relations person in charge of crafting a message on behalf of the Georgian government to present to the rest of the world, what's the one thing you'd like to say to the rest of the world about Georgia?
I would say that we are so diverse country. Georgia is really different country, I would say, and we try to develop we try new things. I would say that people should come, visit us, because we have very beautiful nature, and we have really big history and culture. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would say that this is really diverse society, communities, full of diverse communities, and beautiful nature, and also many poor people, and some problems and some positive angles and everything. I don't know, it's hard to say in one sentence, but yeah,
So as a good PR person, you've given us both the pros and the cons.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you all for joining me today. It was a fascinating discussion, and I hope you enjoy your time here in America.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very much.